we get ready to record, I just want to throw up. This is In the Can. We're talking blue chips. Let's go, baby.
Did you cheat? Foul is not a foul unless the referee blows his whistle.
Did you take money? No! We owe them this money. Don't talk to me about money! We owe it to them!
All right, boys. We got a bunch of theatrical stuff there. I know. We're clean now. The Barn Burners in StreamYard. We're feeling ourselves. We have a first live episode. We figured it'd be no better time than to talk Blue Chips, the 1994 college basketball phenomenon movie, starring none other than our head coach, Penny Hardaway. I got the backdoor cut crew with me right now. We've never been on In the Can together, so welcome. I'm excited to talk this movie. What are some big thoughts about this movie you guys have? Like right out of the gate, what do you feel about this movie when you watched it?
I like the message. It's still relevant in today's day and age to some degree. I mean, just besides everything being outdated. I felt good, man. Penny is so lovable, you know. Penny and Shaq, hard not to enjoy that movie, even though it did seem to drag on forever.
Yeah, it could have used like a little bit more season, like the basketball season would really didn't exist. It just like ended with that one game.
Yeah, they had like
It's like awesome game, and then we're done. Forget this.
One regular season game is like the climax of the movie. It's like it's not even the tournament, you know?
Yeah. I loved all the cameos though throughout, from Jim Boeheim to Rick Pitino, just calmly being nice to the referees, which is so funny. Like knowing what we know about Rick Pitino now, just every time someone else popped up, Larry Bird in French Lick, Indiana. Oh, it was good. It was nostalgic.
Let's do a quick plot summary. So the year is 1994. Pete Bell is a college basketball coach. He's under a lot of pressure. His team isn't winning, and he can't attract new players. The stars of the future are being paid by boosters in this sordid world of college basketball. But the practice is forbidden in the college game. But Pete's desperate from all the pressures all around, so he dives into that money bucket. So where do you rank this movie in your sports movie Hall of Fame? I know you each kind of have one. And also give me kind of one of your favorite sports movies.
So for me, it's probably like I don't know if I've sat down and like assembled a Hall of Fame, especially not by sport. But for me, it's definitely one. So this is the second time I literally just got through watching it. I watched it earlier this summer after I read Raw Recruits. So it's like literally the exact same thing happening as in that book, same time frame and everything. And with all this stuff going on in California and all the other states, it's really, like Mason said, it's like relevant, totally relevant again, has been for like the past 30 years. So it's kind of drags on, but it is a good movie. I really enjoyed it, especially like getting to see Shaq and Penny in there is just like pretty fun to see them. And for me, one of my favorite sports movies is The Rookie with Dennis Quaid, where he comes back and like throws 98 miles an hour out of nowhere. Like,
is he like 40?
Yeah, he's been like kicked out or like hadn't made it in the majors for however long, and then just like makes a big comeback. For whatever reason, I really enjoyed that movie. I think one scene from that movie that sticks out to me is when he's coaching the high school team, and then like they win the state or whatever, and the guy gives him the ball back. He's like, "It's your turn, coach," and they all like give him a high five. It's like, "It's your turn, coach," because he'd made a deal that he like try out for whatever the MLB team is that's got like spring training tryouts near them.
Yeah. Sounds like we need to do a rookie podcast.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Dennis Quaid is like believable as a baseball player, which I think is really important when it comes to a sports movie, is that you can like buy into the actor or whatever that's playing the part or the sport. What about you, Mason? Who do you like? Sports-wise movie.
Blue Chips to me is like, if there was a sports movie Hall of Fame, it would be waiting a long time to get in. You know, like it would not get a lot of votes. It wouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's like I put this movie around like the Angels in the Outfield category, somewhere around there. But I mean, some classics. Remember the Titans. White Men Can't Jump, Coach Carter. You got Moneyball, 42, all the boxing movies. I mean, there's tons of good sports movies out there. A lot of them do seem to involve baseball, The Sandlot. But as far as basketball goes, Coach Carter and Space Jam are at the tops for me. So I'm looking forward to this Space Jam too as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. I like this movie a lot, but I don't think it's like a Hall of Fame movie. I don't think it's like not super well reviewed. It made some decent money. You say White Man Can't Jump. The guy that wrote and directed White Man Can't Jump actually wrote this movie. Ron Shelton's his name. So he kind of wrote like a bunch of those sports movies from the 80s and going into the 90s. He wrote Bull Durham too and won an Oscar for that. So he was kind of the go-to guy to write a sports movie. He actually played college basketball as well. So college basketball was kind of his this was his opus, man. Like this is the first script he wrote, and then he could never get it made because everyone didn't want anyone to know how dirty college basketball was. So what's weird though, this movie isn't that good because it has like an all-star kind of like setup around it. You have him writing it, as an Oscar-winning director or writer. You have William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, French Connection, like these 70s Hall of Fame Oscar caliber movies. He's one of the most renowned directors.
Dude,
like Spielberg.
Let me stop you right there. Did you see where Shaq said The Exorcist was his and his mom's favorite movie?
Yeah, dude, that was he was like, oh, you're Billy Friedkin. It's like, dude, you didn't know who he was before you walked on set. Yeah,
like what?
So we read the oral history. Slim and I read the oral history on the Sports Illustrated for Blue Chips, and Shaq basically said that he was a big Billy Friedkin fan. And I just imagine Shaq like watching like the French Connection, like in his house, I just can't fathom that. But so I just, the sum of all the parts, you put like talented people behind a movie, usually end up with something that kind of is a lot better, I think. So it doesn't really make sense to me, why William Friedkin really wanted to direct this. Apparently he's a big basketball fan, but it's like a pretty left turn. It'd be like if Spielberg directed like Space Jam 2. I mean, it's that big of a kind of name, and it's just strange to me that he became a part of it. What were some other interesting things you noticed about kind of the background of the film?
I noticed that Friedkin was good friends with Red Auerbach, who introduced him to Bobby Knight, and that's how they got Bobby Knight in the movie. And Coach Pete Bell, what's the actor's name that played him?
Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte, yeah. He shadowed Bobby Knight for like 2 weeks to get into that character, and that's who he was emulating, even though he was coaching at a school that was Western University that was emulating UCLA.
Yeah, no doubt UCLA. Same color scheme. It's in LA. It's like I mean, it's almost unbelievable how blatant it is.
But what kind of Dolphins?
The Dolphins? Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a maritime mascot, But yeah, no, I agree. The dolphin like running around in the suit, I was like laughing. I was like, I just imagine him in the kid's living room and be like, you're going to be a dolphin. And it's like, I don't know about that.
I thought it was funny that Coach Bell is so much more Bobby Knight than Bobby Knight is. Like, like Bobby Knight's just like chill, just like very normal conversation, talking crap to the refs. But then like Bell's like kicking the basketball into the stands and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's what they say is that like, I mean, Bobby Knight's known for those moments, but he coached for like 20 years. And so he has like 3 incidents over those years. But for the most part, he was actually like very calm, very calculating. He was very focused on his coaching in game, that he wasn't like, I mean, he has these horror stories, but yeah, that like Nick Nolte just fucking dials it up, bro. Like, he is like going ham at every scene. He throws the water cooler. And I mean, I get it. I get the whole point of it. I mean, it's fun. It's drama. It has to be entertaining, but he was doing a lot, I feel like.
When he punted that basketball, it took me back to a high school basketball practice I had where my coach, shout out to Hal Merle, he was fed up with the effort we were giving, and he took a ball and he punted it to the top of our gym, and we were all amazed. But now I know he was just copying Coach Pete Bell. And I had never seen the movie before. And so when I saw that, I immediately thought, like, damn, that's a Hal Merle movie.
Yeah, you got to call his ass out, man. That apparently that just like completely took over the coaching world. Like just how when Remember the Titans came out, everyone started emulating Denzel. Like all the football coaches started doing that whole bit. And the same thing for this. Like the second this came out, everyone was like, "All right, I got to be more theatrical. I've got to yell." But he's a good guy. He cares that his players aren't passing TV, man. He cares about them knocking chicks up on campus. He's a good guy, Coach Bell.
And let me
get him those prophylactics.
Even better is our freshman coach tried to emulate Coach Merle, and instead of getting a good punt on it, he shanked one into the ball rack and then knocked all the other balls over.
Oh shit! You got to retire at that point. You got to transfer to a different school. I feel like.
It's my boy Coach Witt. He's a legend.
So let's dive into this team, man. So we got these three fab freshmen coming in that Coach Bill has to recruit, played by real life basketball players. Of course, William Freakin said that he watches a ton of sports movies. He feels like they're never realistic. Feels like the basketball never feels like real basketball. So his notion was, let's cast real players. Let's let them play the game. Let's not script out individual plays. We script out the result of the games, but we let them just sort of hoop, and then we record it. Like we shoot it, set up 5 cameras, and just shoot the whole thing. So first off, we got Penny Hardaway, our boy, the head coach of the University of Memphis, as the 6'7" do-it-all guard, Butch McRae from Chicago. He doesn't know how to play the motion offense. I mean, what's this like? What? Everyone's playing the motion offense at that point. But he's a 1-4 guy. He likes to get in and be able to dish it. That's our boy Butch's style. What do we think about Penny as Butch right off the bat?
I mean, he's a hooping.
Yeah.
They all show up at that Cracker Box gym. All the like fancy coaches are on the upper deck on like the walking track, and they're all hanging out, just talking to each other.
Oh my
wearing
gosh!
their
Wait,
suits.
Tarkanian, the famed coach of UNLV's up there, and he says, "I don't think we could get him in academically." Yeah, which is like the biggest LOL of all time. Based on this, this is the best revisionist history. Is this movie to like look back? These fucks were cheating their asses off.
Dude,
Like-
Bill Self would definitely be in the remake of Blue Chips.
Oh my god, yeah. He'd be like,
That's a good one.
Adidas doesn't have any money. That's what he'd say. Like,
And I think Pete Bell's wearing Adidas shoes at the very beginning. I think there's a little flash there.
I think
And-
he's wearing
and his-
Reeboks too. He's wearing
Was
Reeboks.
it Reebok?
Yeah.
I thought it was Adidas at one point.
When
Maybe
he's
I was-
coaching, when he's coaching them up on the finer points of setting screens, he's got Reeboks on. Yeah,
Dang, they sure fell off the map.
no kidding. So
Yeah.
Penny, we think Penny was good, bad. Do we believe him as Butch McRae?
He was lovable, I saw in that oral history that Friedman said that he thought he was the most natural actor he'd ever came across. I wouldn't give him that much credit. He
Yeah, I don't know about
wasn't
that.
but
Tom Hanks, Penny Hardaway.
his lines were limited, and he was fine for the role. I don't think he was great. His acting career obviously didn't take off except for the commercials, so he did have some type of talent for the entertainment industry.
Yeah, like his biggest scene is him coming in and saying like, "Hey, I'm homesick. If I go home, is my mom gonna lose her house and job?"
Yeah.
That's like all he said. I feel like in the whole movie almost.
But it was
Yeah.
like, come on, Penny, you know the answer to that.
Yeah, I had to just set up the excess drama there and like kind of get some stuff going between the coach and him. Yeah, I mean he was fine. Like I always question, like it's one of the things of am I going to be embarrassed for him? I wondered that before I watched it, but no, he was fine. He wasn't like embarrassingly bad or anything.
Yeah, not at all.
Like I believed it for sure. I just seemed kind of like playing himself, really, just a quieter star who probably doesn't know how good he is. Like I think that kind of like mimicked his real life persona a little bit.
Yeah, and he's like a 17-year-old kid playing a 17-year-old kid. So like
Right.
in that situation, that's like much bigger than that kid who's been a high school athlete. It seems pretty believable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he was just coming into the NBA. It was 93. Like, that was before he and Shaq even got teamed up. So, can you imagine, like, just being done at University of Memphis or Memphis State University and then just starring in a movie and joining Shaq? That's what a life.
I think so. I watched, I believe it's One Magic Moment, the ESPN 30 for 30 with Shaq and Penny. I think that's the title of it.
Mm-hmm.
But they talk about how like that was their first real interaction was the filming of this movie.
Yep.
And so that played a really big part in the Magic making that trade to get Penny on draft night.
Yeah, there's a bunch of history about that, and Magic officials dispute that. They're like, well, I don't really remember that happening, but whatever. And it kind of comes like the legacy of this movie, like kind of the lore of it. But all right, so we'll talk more about that later too. But moving on to Shaq playing the 7'1" center big man Neon Badeau, former Army JUCO player, grew 8 inches over one summer, which is pretty interesting. We first meet Neon dunking on a bunch of random extras on a 9.5-foot rim and just yelling. I'm all about that scene when they walk in and they do like that. This is how good this guy is. Let me give you like 7 plays where he's just dunking like over a guy that's like 6 foot. But I was in, man. At this point, I'm in on Neon. What do we think about Shaq as Neon and kind of his performance? I think we kind of get the beginning of what we know to be Shaq here, right?
Oh man, I think he's goofy.
Yeah.
Personally, I think the goofiest scene being the one where he's in the classroom and he like stops the professor cold and just like starts talking and then like goes and he's just joking around and then goes and sits back down in his seat. And he's like, "Oh, I gotta talk to my coach about this class," but just like makes a scene for no reason, but just a big goofball. Feel like.
Yeah. This class culturally biased.
Yeah. Is it African American literature? He's like, "No, it's English literature." Did you not choose your classes? It's like, "Oh,
gotta
no,
talk to
really.
my coach."
Gotta talk to my coach.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed the scene when Coach Bell was recruiting Neon, and they're like walking through his hood, and Shaq's talking about the SATs are culturally biased, and then he asked him, if I couldn't play basketball, would you still be trying to get me into college? And Coach Pete Bell had to keep it real with him. He said, no.
Yeah.
Neon said, at least you're honest.
I feel like, that conversation, that has to happen so much. Like, and you wonder what coaches would say. You wonder how many would just talk out of their ass at that point or who would be real. But yeah, I agree. There was some commentary on college basketball and kind of like the profiting on these kids' likenesses. And the booster, who's our villain, Happy, he kind of has some good points, man. Every now and then you're kind of like, okay, like I see what you're saying. Like he says we owe these kids at one point. And I mean, I know he's doing it the wrong way, but you can't necessarily argue that message, especially with the things going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, he said the same thing you hear on Gary Parrish every afternoon.
Yeah.
Athletes generate millions of dollars and get nothing in return. So Happy was speaking the truth. Maybe he's out in California now pushing this bill through.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure that it could be Gary Parrish played Happy and we just don't really, under a pseudonym because they kind of have the same like gray spiky hair. So I don't know.
Are we in agreement that Shaq was good throughout this movie? Do y'all think he was good?
He's Shaq, man. Like you know what you're gonna get. Like he's gonna be a little goofy. Like he's gonna like kind of like I mean they play him like a dumb like super athlete, but really smarter than he appears. And so I he was fine. Like he didn't really have to do any dramatic scenes. I will say that that one scene when he's talking about Coach Bell's talking to his ex-wife and they're out there. He has that scene where like he apparently like when they went to him with the script, Friedkin and the writer went to Shaq with the script. He said, "I want to do this movie." Shaq did, and the agent stepped in and said, "We got some problems. He can't say bitch, and his character can't take money." And Shaq interrupted and said, "No, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the movie. I'm going to say bitch, and I did take that money." So like he basically outed LSU like in to his agent in front of Friedkin and the writer. But that was kind of a jarring scene when he calls his
I was like I was a little I feel like it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, how was she just cool with being called that right there? I don't know.
I know, like they act so cool about it. Maybe that might just be my like 2019 brain.
Yeah.
Like, but it was jarring to me when I saw it.
I think maybe they had gotten to know each other through like the study sessions, and she knew he was joking.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that. I don't think he was being malicious. Just like my 2019 years were like, whoa, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my favorite Shaq scene in the movie is after the game versus Indiana, after Coach Pete goes in there and he tells everyone that like basically, we cheated, I'm gonna quit. And then he walks out, and then Shaq is stopping him on Pete's way to the press conference. He steps out in the hallway, like one hand on the door frame, and he's like, "Hey, coach." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "How was my spin move?" Like, you have this you're like in between super dramatic moments, and then Shaq does that, and you just have to like laugh.
Shout out the editor there. I feel like the editor probably needs to move that scene around. I think kind of undercut the dramatic moment there. But Ricky Rowe, our 6'8" power forward. Can shoot that hoe
and looking for some.
And and resident horn dog, man. Played by Matt Nover from. Does anyone know where Matt Nover played college ball?
Indiana.
Yeah.
I looked it up.
He was a center on Bobby Knight's Indiana team, All-American. And then I believe a Final Four player on a starter on an Indiana team. Tough hang for Matt Nover to be one of the three guys who is not a freaking All-NBA player. Now you look back in this movie, but it's funny they just had to get the standard white guy that could shoot it. I feel like the Larry Bird archetype. And they
The
literally
Midwestern
make
guy, yeah.
literally make him a Larry Bird archetype from French Lick. They have Bird basically introduce him, which they paid Larry Bird probably like $1 million to show up for one day on set and just wear like a sleeveless white T-shirt and like. And did y'all notice like he was like, hey, you know Ricky, and Bird's like, yeah, I know Ricky, and he's like, broke all my records, damn it, and then he's like, well, can you get a hold of him for me? He's like, yeah, we'll do that right now, and then it seems like they're gonna go together to Ricky, but then like it just ends up being Coach Bell going.
Yeah.
Bird was on set for one day, and he's like, fuck this shit, I'm getting out of here. What do we think? What do we think about Nover? What do we think about Ricky? And just give me some thoughts on the Horn Dog out of French Lick.
So Nover did have a decent career overseas, about a 10-year career. He ended up becoming a citizen of Portugal. He played on the 03 and 05 teams that tried to qualify for the FIBA World Cup. I don't think they ever did, but now he's a regional sales manager back in Indiana. I saw that.
Really?
Like LinkedIn him or something.
It popped up
Damn.
when you type in his name. So, but I thought he was good for the role. They said that they didn't want a real actor because they were playing so much basketball, but they needed someone that had that farm boy look, and he just happened to have it. And Bobby Knight supposedly pushed for some of his players to be in the movie, so that gave him the nod. He was fine, when he asked for the money, that was awkward.
Yeah, it was, and then Bell gets super pissed and throws his ass out. Bell like berates Ricky twice, and Ricky just acts like nothing ever happened. Like after
Okay.
that, but yeah.
My daddy wants a tractor.
I think that used to happen to the white player. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. If you were like the one guy, like that used to happen to me sometimes. Like, you're just gonna get yelled at.
so a lot of actors contacted Friedkin about playing Ricky Rowe, including the none other than Mark Wahlberg.
Said his game wasn't ready. His game wasn't ready.
And Friedkin says like, "Yo, we got Shaq and Penny, so like, can you play at that level?" And Wahlberg's like, "Nah." He's like, "I'll like show up in the stands as an extra one day, but no, I can't play that well." And Friedkin said this quote: "I wasn't interested in any of these guys winning Academy Awards. I was interested in authenticity of play." And in that, I feel like he probably succeeded.
Dude, they had some hoopers out there.
Yeah.
Keith Smart, the former Grizz assistant coach, and from Indiana, who I believe hit the game-winning shot in the NCAA championship game way back when. Calvin Chaney, who was NCAA Player of the Year. They had a bunch of hoopers. Bobby Hurley, he was on one of the teams.
Yeah. I got some great Bobby Hurley, Bobby Knight trivia that I got from that oral history. If we want to get into that right now, or I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on the three freshmen.
I think it's always a good time to get into Bobby Hurley and Bobby Knight trivia.
Good. So Bobby Knight, they had him on set to film the climactic, game versus the number 1 seed Indiana. He refused makeup entirely. They tried to write some dialogue for him, and he said, "Fuck that, I'm not reading lines." And then he coached. They like essentially rolled the kids out there and let them play a game. Didn't script anything except for the last play, and that there has to be obviously the Western has to win. And Bobby Knight coached the game to win. He would not stop coaching. He was like ahead most of the game, and every time the director would come over and be like, "Bob, man, like you got to get down, because ultimately Western has to win the game." And he was like, "No, I'm not doing that." He said all the players, it was just like a ragtag group of players assembled a fake Indiana team, including Bobby Hurley, who was of course a famous Duke point guard. He got him in the huddle and said, "Let me tell you something, boys. We got 24 seconds left to play, and fate's got us up by 3. We sure as hell aren't going to lose to a bunch of derogatory term from Hollywood now." It's like the most amazing thing ever that Bobby Knight's so competitive that he's coaching a fake fucking basketball game for a movie and won't lose on purpose, even that's what the script says, which is like unbelievably good Bobby Knight right there.
And like supposedly he had a bad day playing golf, and he and Friedkin got into it. So this was his way of getting back at him, was by beating the Western University team. They said on the last play, the lob to Shaq, which to me is probably the worst basketball scene in the whole show or in the whole movie. Like at that play, you could tell it's scripted. But before that time, when the dunk happened, Bobby Knight stop the lob. Like he had his defender bump Shaq and not allow him to run to the rim for the lob.
I mean, that's what you do in real life, right? There's no way you like let Shaq catch an alley oop to win a basketball game like that. You know?
What a pass from Penny from like 3/4 court over his head.
Right. Another good Bobby Knight story. Ed O'Neill, the guy who played Ed, the reporter, who was of course famous for Married with Children at that point, and now is on what's that show? That show on USA. It's a sitcom. Anyway, he's another dad on a sitcom. Great. It has like a multi-generational family. So anyway, he's at the bar one night. Modern Family, yeah, Modern Family.
Multi-generational.
So one of
he was my favorite secondary character.
yeah, and he's kind of the gumshoe reporter detective who's going to break the big scandal. So he's at the bar, and not one of Knight's assistants comes over and says, "Hey, you want to meet Coach Knight?" And then Ed O'Neill says, "Yeah, sure, I'll go over there." And said he was really sunburned because he'd been playing golf all day. And one of the assistants said something like, "Coach Knight has forgotten more about basketball than most guys will ever know." So this guy, Ed O'Neill, this actor, said, "I'd had a few drinks." And I said, "How smart could he be? He had Larry Bird and let him go." And then the room just went entirely silent. And Bob Knight set his drink down and looked over at him and said, "Yeah, how smart could I be?" And that was it.
Sounds like they have a good relationship.
Yeah. And then Dick Vitale in the climax scene jumped on Knight's back apparently to bear hug him in between takes, and Knight hit him with an elbow and knocked his old ass to the floor. He's like,
his old ass even back to 94.
yeah, dude, it's still so old.
Yeah, I know. He did not look young in the movie.
He did not. I was like, oh, this is young Bobby Knight. It's literally like 25 years ago, and he like still looks like he's 70 something. And then another good Ed O'Neill story said that he liked Duke guard Bobby Hurley. Apparently, he said, "I'll tell you a funny thing about that fucker. We were also jealous of him. Every night of the week, he was with another girl who's better looking than the night before." So I love Bobby Hurley taking advantage of being on the West Coast for a little bit and just taking care of some business on his personal side.
A real life Ricky Rowe.
Yeah, exactly.
How about Penny's mom asking for a house and a new job?
Yeah, I don't know like what the standard is in terms of the under the table dealing, but that's pretty ballsy.
I mean, she had a nice office, a big nameplate, wooden desk. She had a house with a yard, moved out of the project. So the McRae's definitely got to come up.
No doubt. And obviously, we know at the end of the movie, after they beat number one Indiana, that Shaq and Penny or Butch and Neon go to the NBA. They drop out of school and go straight to the NBA. And so they're I think everything turns out okay for them. So the moral of the story is kind of a weird combo moral. It's like, the kids were okay, but then the coach like essentially outs himself. I do feel like this movie would be a lot better if like we didn't know so much about scandals. Apparently when this came out, no one had any idea about any of this stuff. Like
right.
It was just starting to, like the Tarkanian stuff was just starting to unravel, but it would be way better, I think. But now it's like, well, duh. You watch this and
it's
you're
super
just like
commonplace,
right?
And
it's weird if you're not cheating, and it's just how good can you cheat? How good can you get? How efficiently and secretly can you get the money to the players to where it can't be traced back to you? But I think it would have been a lot better, like if you'd seen it in its context of '94. Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Jim Boeheim, who made an appearance.
Yeah.
Did Rick Pitino being like all calm and coaching Tex Western, and he's like, I feel like that was young Pitino though. He was like kind of like sleazing on the refs. He was like, good call.
That's why you're a good referee.
Oh man. All right, well, let's get into some categories. Let's start with who gets the most buckets in this movie, which is our category for best acted. Now it's even more applicable considering we're talking a basketball movie. So who do y'all like for best acted? Zach, who you got?
I have to go with Nick Nolte as the coach, Pete Bell. I think that he's a centerpiece of the whole movie. His conscience kind of guides you through the whole movie. Starts with him realizing that, he's definitely a great coach, but everyone else is paying off players, so he cannot compete with people. And then just kind of seeing that moral dilemma of him kind of going over to the dark side, I guess, getting with the boosters, and then just kind of realizing that's not how he wants to live his life. And some of his tirades are pretty good, I thought. Very Bobby Knight-esque. So, I mean, I guess that's probably the easiest one, and that's the most, he created the most memorable scenes. He's in all of them.
Yeah. Who you got, Mace?
Well, yeah, I mean Nick Nolte, but for the sake of this discussion, I'll go with Shaq, man. I think he did well with his scenes. He brought light to some issues that seemed to be important to him at the time, with people not caring about people from the hood, and just like how the SATs were culturally biased, and arguments that you still hear talked about to this day. So I'll go with Shaq for being a young guy shedding light on some issues and setting the stage for his acting career. I believe this was pre Kazam,
Yeah, it was right before the Genie classic that is Kazan.
and this was much better than Kazam. So
Yeah, no,
you
for sure.
gotta give Shaq full credit in this movie.
I agree.
In Kazam.
I really liked Anthony C. Hall as Tony, the senior point guard, kind of the leader of the team on that losing record squad from the year before, the year that we see him recruit the All Stars. Failing TV, sorry to hear that. Didn't knock up his girlfriend, that's good. But I think the scene, where Bell goes in to the dorms after he figures out that one of his players was shaving points, and which is a big deal in the '90s. Like that was like when all that shit started. And apparently it was like the NCAA had a hell of a time, getting to the root of it and stopping it. But so he goes to Tony's dorm and Tony admits it. And that is a kind of emotional scene between like Pete Bell, Coach Bell, who we are led to believe is kind of like a father figure for Tony in particular, but a lot of his players. And then Tony kind of gives like a good performance in that scene that's believable. Apparently William Friedkin had to literally slap him in the face.
Yeah, what
he
the hell?
He wouldn't. So this is like, so I know you guys aren't big like movie guys, but so Billy Friedkin, this is like his shit. Like this was his, like he was like considered a tyrant, but he just got great performances out of people because he put them in like real emotional states and then have like shoot the scenes. And he mentions in the oral history, like, no way in hell would this happen today. Like I'd be fired in like 2 seconds. But in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when you're making a movie and you need someone to be emotional, you slap them around between takes and get that emotion you need. And apparently, Anthony C. Hall, the actor that plays Tony, and him are friends today. And Tony, in the long run, Anthony appreciates it.
And he got the scene.
Right, he got the take we saw in the movie, which was what he wanted, and you can question his methods, but I did like Tony. I think he kind of added some gravitas to he was another player that wasn't one of these freshman phenoms that we got to see and kind of anchored us to the team. We needed to have an anchor to the team that was there from the previous team, so he satisfied that.
Because there's not really any other guys on that team that you like walk away remembering their names, I don't think.
Right. Cool. So let's move into our second category, which is Sixth Man or Woman Award. Makes the most out of their role with limited screen time. So who you got for Sixth Man or Sixth Woman, Mace?
I got to give this to Penny. I thought he did good in his limited screen time, as we already talked about. He had his one scene that was kind of heartfelt. You're like, oh, come on, Coach Bell, just let him go home and you let his mom keep all this amazing new life that you gave him.
Right.
So I thought Penny did good. I got to go with him. But a special nod to the booster, the sleazy dude.
Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah, Happy's good.
I think for me, I'm going to go with Jenny Bell, played by Mary McDonnell. She had a pretty fair amount of screen time, but I think she was a pivotal character in the movie because she was pretty much Pete's emotional support the entire time, even though they're divorced. He's really she's like the one person that he really cares about. What's up, Harp?
Yeah, Harpy's joined the podcast now.
And like the way that her interactions with like tutoring and when the classroom scene with her kids and where she decides to tutor Shaq Neon, that's pretty good too.
How about when she acted like Shaq had never been around kids before? She's like, please don't step on the children. Like he's a fucking elephant.
And he just looks at her like, "Woo?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're like climbing all over him and everything.
They make him like a lumbering giant. Like, yeah, he's like, whoa, whoa. Yeah, exactly. So I like her too. One thing I found weird was like, what's her skin in this game? Like, she's divorced from him, and she like, oh, we get it. She like understands basketball. Like she was like pressure the guards and like comes up with all these things that he did wrong in game coaching. But like, I just don't understand what her motivation is in terms of like at all helping him. Like,
did we know why they're not together?
It's just his. I think we're supposed to believe that he was focused too much on coaching
with basketball. Yeah, and like she's in the press conference at the end. And she's always sitting like second row still. Like she's definitely like deeply embedded in the program, even though they're not married.
Yeah, I just didn't buy that. Like, why she would still be around. But
he
but
still
no,
went
I mean,
to
like,
her house after the game.
yeah,
Had game tapes there that were obviously recent game tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
yeah.
Who'd you have, Sam?
Yeah, I questioned this. I really, I was gonna pick her actually, so I'm glad you did. But you stole mine, bruh. Oh, dude, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give it to Bob Cousy as the athletic director, who like a bunch
yeah,
of
he was good.
crazy
Yeah.
Bob Cousy-isms. First of all, he goes in there while he's taking a shower and just sits outside the shower and is like, "Well, we'll get him next year." And it's like, what AD does that? Like when you go, like, there's no way. First of all, you're gonna like, if you have a losing, if like you have a losing year, if you're at a big time program like that, the AD is not gonna be anything but like pissed. I mean, even if you're like Pete Bell, who has 2 titles and 8 conference championships or whatever. So I thought that was funny. And then of course the free throw shooting scene where they're like, they have the classic like, let's talk about our lives while we're like, I'm dishing the ball to you, and he just aces like free throws and he won't miss.
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's Bob Cousy. And
Both hands.
yeah, and like he has like his awesome like 50s era jump shot. And he apparently like Nick Nolte like ad-libbed that line where he was like, what do you ever miss? And so they kind of, because that wasn't in the script. It wasn't in the script that he was going to make like a million straight. So I'm fired up about Cousy.
Yeah, and how he like knew everything that was going on, but totally like acted like he didn't, or he's like, I don't know nothing, I don't know anything, I don't want to hear about the football team. But he
Yeah.
was just like totally trying to play ignorant, but definitely knew.
Right. I mean,
Oh,
which
yeah.
you
Oh,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
you have to think like that's the case with a lot of ads, but
Don't ask, don't tell policy. I'm sure.
yeah, I don't know.
Did
Got the
anyone not shine in their role?
I thought the I didn't like the assistants. I'd like to see more out of them. I think that those, I don't know they have a lot of lines, I didn't have a lot of parts, but they were just kind of like background players. And I think that those, they could have done more with the scenes where it's the coach and his trusted assistants, in the film rooms, and those could be the guys that are kind of the devils or demons on his shoulder, or devils or angels on his shoulder. You know what I mean? But they were just kind of like guys.
Yeah, they didn't work
I
hard
agree.
enough. That's probably why they had a losing season. Those guys
Yeah.
weren't working hard
Yeah,
enough.
Coach Bell's like, yo, we got to get out there and get these kids. And it's like, he's like, we can't expect them to just come to us anymore. And I'm like, damn, was it ever, or if you're like Indiana or UCLA, I mean, these kids just come to you? And maybe.
You got Saul Smith and Pooh Williamson on staff.
Shit. Dude, throwing rocks at a oh, man. Fire Tubby Smith. All right, so let's move on to this category. ISO play is our category for single greatest scene. What was a scene that jumped out to y'all that you just like really appreciated, either the acting or the way it was shot, or just you were kind of like memorable?
To me, one that I really enjoyed was like after. So it starts with Pete going over to Happy's house and basically being like, "All right, I submit myself to you. You're gonna you got to take care of this for me because I know I need these players or my career's toast. I don't want to know the details. You take care of everything." Of course, Happy's gloating, going on and on about friends of the program. And then you just start to see like all the guys getting their payoffs. Shaq gets like his new Lexus given to him by some like random guy with the handlebar mustache. Butch's mom gets her house and job, and Ricky Rose tractor just shows up at his dad's place. Like that whole like sequence was a real big turning point.
And
I
that
enjoyed
30,000 in cash.
And that 30 in the duffel
In the
bag.
duffel
yeah.
bag. In the duffel bag. Exactly
He
how I
got the
wanted
bag.
it. Yeah, literally.
And you felt good, didn't you? You didn't feel like any rules were being broken.
Yeah, they did a good job setting him up as like begrudgingly doing it. Like he was like, okay, like, and so you're like, and it's helping these kids and these families that they do a good job flashing around and showing you what the situation these families are in. So you're like, oh, this is helpful. Like I'm a human being and they're human beings, and like, this doesn't seem so bad. So they did a really good job with that, I thought, kind of setting you up there. What'd you like, Mace? What scene did you like the most?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that scene, Zach, but that was a really good one now that I look back at it. My favorite, I think, was the opening scene when Coach Bell is just going on his tirade on the team.
Yeah.
And he like leaves and comes back in. And, I'm sick of basketball today.
It's funny that in between the assistants like try to draw up a game plan, and then he keeps coming back in and interrupting their asses.
I mean, it was great because like my coach in high school would do that. Like he would just go on a tirade and walk out, and like you'd start to be like, all right, guys, like we need to get. And one more thing,
Dude, he was totally aping Bell for sure. He was aping Coach Bell, no doubt. It's totally stealing all of his gimmicks.
yeah, he was for sure. And we went about 14-15 too. So, but that was probably my favorite scene. Also liked his ending press conference, but we can hold off on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say ending press conference too. That was gonna be mine. You kind of bookend the movie with two press conferences. One that's sort of him down on his luck, losing season, getting asked by the reporters what he's gonna do, sort of alluding to the point shaving scandal, and then at the end we get this kind of like. There's a movie called Network that came out in the 70s where there's like a couple big monologues that are like 6 minutes long. And, this is like kind of had that vibe to me. It was like, just put Nick Nolte on the stage, like let him just do this dialogue, ad lib a large part of it, and just kind of let an actor act. And, like you put the ball in his hands and usually magic happens. And so they just kind of like shoot him up there and he just does his thing. And it's just a really good scene where I think he identifies a lot of what's wrong with the sport, and also his true nature comes out, which is he can't live with himself, man. Like this is not his way. He's going to coach, and that he is going to say two words he never thought he'd say in his life: "I quit." So I thought that was a good like culmination of the movie. And as far as I'm concerned, I would have liked to see it, end like hard cut to credits, like after he stops talking, like in it maybe a slow push on his face, and then hard cut to credits, like after he gets done with his speech. But then we got to get the like. Now this is where Neon is. This is where they kind of give like that. But I like that scene a lot. I thought that was really good.
Well, we didn't need him going out there and like
Playing with the
Oh,
playground.
I hated that scene, dude. I had totally knocked that out of my brain actually until you because that's an unbelievably hokey scene and feels very 90s to me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, dude, like first of all, like these kids are gonna be cool with this random old ass white dude walking up on them and teaching them how to shoot a jump shot. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Has anyone
creepy.
ever taught you? No, sir. Please teach me.
And then he immediately hits his first one. Like he immediately has perfect form and just like wets one right there, like a 17-footer. Hey, I thought that was goofy. I'm glad you brought that up.
Has Ben Simmons gotten in touch with Pete Bell?
Yeah, we need Pete Bell on the Sixers shooting staff.
But that closing presser, I mean, it was epic. Yeah. Straight to the credits after the "I quit." That would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been like that's freaking. I bet like he probably lobbied for that, and the studio was like, "No, man, we got to flash around and show what all the kids are up to these days." Like, he had constant battles with studios about like edits and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a great scene.
Neon didn't want it. We just gave it to him. Can you imagine if we would have given him a Ferrari? He'd have 40 or 50 points.
Yeah. Also, I love when you like ask the people, like the press people, like how many rebounds Neon had, and they don't know. Like, they're like 13. It's like, dude, it's not in front of you, like on the sheet.
Right.
But I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that was an epic. That was an epic little speech.
Yeah. All right. So who do we most quotable quote is our next category. So where we highlight a piece of dialogue we especially liked. What do you like for most quotable quote, Mason?
Oh, there's a few good ones. The one we already mentioned with Neon when he asked if, would you still be trying to get me into college if I couldn't play basketball? But let me go with Levita McRae's, "A foul is not a foul unless they blow the whistle."
That was gonna be mine. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a great little like multi-meaning, metaphoric piece of dialogue too. I thought that was good. She kind of reminded me of the woman on How to Get Away with Murder, and she's in I forgot what her name is, but she's like a pretty famous African American actor right now that's doing a lot of good stuff. She has that like real severe authoritarian presence, but and in fact I looked up to see if that was her when she was younger, but it's not.
Yeah, and so they're like walking out under the train tracks just outside the projects, and she's having this conversation with Coach Bell. And yeah, I mean, she just delivered it well. I thought the setting for that quote was very good. So yeah, Levita McRae, shout out. She's very, very good in her limited action.
Yeah, I thought so too. Zach, who you got?
All right, so I had a couple that I enjoyed. One comes at pretty early dawn. So Pete Bell's doing his tirade. After the very first game at the beginning of the movie, he comes back in, he's talking to him, he says, "Remember one thing, we aren't losers, we're winners," to all his guys, even though they literally just lost a basketball game. Then like he leaves the room and then flashes to him sitting with his assistant coaches, and first thing he says is, "We're losers."
Yeah. That's good writing right there. Great
So I
writing.
thought that was funny. And then another one is when he's giving a pregame pep talk before the Indiana game. And he talks to Ricky, and he said, Ricky? He doesn't really talk. That's not his accent, but no.
You gotta gargle some rocks, and then you can do it.
He's like,
Nick Nolte.
Ricky, the basket out there is the same size as the hoop at your dad's farm in Indiana.
Oh, Hoosiers
And he li-
ripoff, by the way.
And he just comes in. Ricky's like, cheesy smile over here. That's funny, coach.
You know, Coach, you're right. That's right. Yeah, that's good. I like too. I like another Pete Bell quote from the beginning when he's doing one of his locker room trades. He's like, Dwayne, you can get through college half-assed. Richard, you can get through life half-assed. But I'll guarantee you boys one thing. Sure as hell, I'll guarantee you this: you cannot win half-assed. Now that's a good pick me up right there. You know, I was fired up. I was ready to get out there in the second half and win the game and not have a losing season. Also, like Happy, the sleazy booster, who's always with some 10 pieces, some blonde 10 pieces, like 90s 10 pieces too, which is total Baywatch-ish type stuff. Like is eventually like he's convincing Coach Bell to come to the dark side and start paying his players. And he says, I screw a hell of a lot better when we're winning, don't you?
I believe he also had you got horses, but what you need are thoroughbreds.
Yeah, that was the AD.
Oh yeah, yeah, some good quotes in this movie.
Yeah, they had some zippy dialogue, and there wasn't anybody that was just so terrible or anything that kind of took you out of the movie. Was there any stuff that you just couldn't stand? Just stuff you hated about it, just some nitpicks?
No, but none of us showed love to the final speech to the team. What did y'all think about that?
I don't feel like it was super memorable.
Yeah, I can't even remember.
Yeah, it kind of got eclipsed by his presser, I think.
Yeah, he goes in and he says, like, I don't agree with the rules. There are rules. Some of us broke the rules. I'll be talking to each one of you about what your place in this program is tomorrow, which ironically he won't be because he's about to go quit. So
Right.
that isn't true at all.
And
then he just leaves.
I feel like it was like I kind of felt bad for the players. You know, they just won this huge game.
Yeah.
They're happy in the locker room, and then he kind of abandons them and says, like, I can't do this. I'm out of here. Like, and like I feel like he didn't give a good, for what the kind of guy he was, which is like a player's coach. They didn't give him a good send off with his kids. Then like Neon comes out and they have that jokey exchange, but it's like,
You're
right?
about to go back to Louisiana, dude.
Yeah,
Like your time in LA is over.
I could have
Why are you
used
so happy?
I could have used a more heartfelt couple sentences with his team that show that he's not just like leaving him high and dry.
Yeah, I mean, he just leaves them exactly high and dry because of his actions.
Right? Yeah, no one made him do it.
Hey, nothing's changed.
Dude, I love it in the oral history of Penny Hardaway. Like there was multiple times. This oral history came out in 2019. So he was currently the coach of Memphis when he was giving this his comments on the movie, and so they kept putting the bracket like Penny Hardaway, currently coach of University of Memphis, and they essentially like asked like something about the reality of the the coaching and like this cheating and stuff, and Penny basically did the equivalent of like, I don't know nothing about that. He was like,
Nice.
I mean, if it works that way, then I don't know, but I love that. It's like that's our coach, man.
But then he went on to say, I guess Blue Chips had it right.
Yeah. Just not at Memphis. Memphis, we do it clean.
Right.
Yeah.
Just not my program.
Yeah, exactly. Rewatchability. So, which one of these four options is this movie, Blue Chips? Is this a buy on Blu-ray, a rent on iTunes or YouTube, Mason, a happen to catch on HBO or Stars if it's on, or probably never going to watch this shit again after this podcast? Which one is it for you, Mason?
I'm probably not gonna watch it again.
Okay.
Maybe when I have a kid or something, and it happens to be on HBO or Stars, as you said, possibly. But I won't be seeking out this movie to watch again.
Yeah.
I think I could see myself watching it again in like 5 to 8 years, like renting it on iTunes.
Yeah.
And watching it again.
I think it almost has more life if Penny becomes successful.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's already been as successful as he could have been, but I mean, if he starts, going to Sweet 16s, Elite Eights, Final Fours, and I think then it kind of has like a longer shelf life.
Like after the Tigers win a national championship and we have a Penny Hardaway day and like this is shown on the Bluff or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll watch
That
it.
wasn't one of the options though.
Hey, as far as I'm concerned, us winning an Addy's always an option. I bought this movie because it was $10 on iTunes, and it was like rent for $4 or buy for $10. They got my ass. So because I just like buying movies, like supporting, like the art of cinema. But like I was like, oh, like I bet I'm gonna like this movie a lot, and then I bought it, and it's like only okay. So now I randomly have this movie, but hell, I can watch it anytime.
So you gonna watch it again?
I did before we did this, and in fact, it was playing behind me for a little while.
Well, that don't
but-
count, man. That's cheating.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I
Let's
watched it
cop out.
twice. I watched it twice in like 3 days.
Yeah, me too. That's enough.
Yeah, I think I give her about 5 years, like Zach said, and then maybe revisit it and see if it's taken on any more meaning after Bill Self is coach of some JUCO team somewhere at that point.
Yeah, that's probably when I'll watch it again before the sequel comes out.
Yeah, exactly. So we at the bar need to get to work writing Blue Chips 2, and see what we need to workshop that and just we really create a character.
Maine University.
All right, boys. Oh, unless we got any parting thoughts, this has been another episode of In the Can. It was a pleasure having you guys and doing our first live show, talking a movie that it's a sports movie. It may not be the best, but it has our coach in it, and it's about a topic which we hold near and dear, and that is Blue Chips. So I guess we'll get out of here.
See ya.
Holler.
Later.